Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where we make top 10 lists of pointless things. Why are we flying by this pointless statue in Booty Bay? Because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 is the forge at the blacksmith at the Arathi Basin, and I think before we even get into all this, we need to define what is a forge, because when I was doing this list, I was looking at some furnaces, and I was like, well, is a furnace really a forge? And it's not. Typically, a furnace is a big oven that has a closed door, while a forge is generally used for metal work, and it's an open fire source where you can place your metal into it and heat it to a temperature and forge it into shape. So you can't really do that with a furnace. So if you look in the background there, that is a furnace in the Arathi Basin. But if you have that big fireplace in there, then that is actually a forge. So, I actually learned that. I didn't know the difference between either one. And it took a little bit of Googling for me to actually find that. But I love the Arathi Basin blacksmith. And I was like, yo, this would be a cool forge to have. And it's not even so much the forge itself that I think is cool, but the actual entire blacksmithing area more so than anything, right? I've always loved the Arathi Basin blacksmith. I think they did an awesome job updating it I think it's got updated in BFA. And I don't know, it's a very aesthetically pleasing area to be in, right? And so, for that reason alone, I had to put it at number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Obliterum Forge, and this is a forge built by the Demon Hunters in Dalaran, which can destroy epic items in order to gain Obliterum Ash, which could then be combined in order to create Obliterum. But I don't really care about that. This is mainly because the forge actually looks really sick. It's got these big demon horns, and you might look at it and be like, crendor, that looks more like a furnace, but the front of it does open up, so I guess that would allow you to forge your weapons and stuff, but as of patch 9.1, it can no longer be used, so it actually doesn't open up anymore. However, this also is like a forge that destroys epic items, so you're not really forging items in this, but I guess you're maybe forging epic items but no, you're burning them into ash. Listen, I don't even think Blizzard knows what a forge is. Maybe nobody knows what a forge is at this point, but it's called the Obliterum Forge. You know what? It looks cool. It's got the crazy green glowing eyes and fire in its mouth, or fellfire. I don't know what it is, but it looks pretty neat. I don't know if it's actually a forge, so that's why it's number 9. Hey! Number 8 is the Rune Forge, and the Rune Forge, I think, is our first real forge that we've found. Or put on this list, I guess. I've found all these already. I don't know why I said that, but a rune forge, according to Wowpedia, is a special type of forge used by Death Knights to emblazon their weapon with runes. A rune forge is required to modify any runes already in your weapon done via rune forging. So, there it is. You literally can forge your weapons with these rune forges, and they fit the bill, right? They got the open fire where you can stick the sword in, and that's it. And honestly, they're really cool. These are from Wrath of the Lich King, obviously, and I don't want to judge them based on their graphical style because, it's an anvil inside of a forge-looking thing that's a skull, And I mean, for the time, it was pretty cool, but nowadays it would be a lot different, probably better graphics, better flames, better everything, but there was still something nostalgic about it. I think everybody remembers making a Death Knight, going to this rune forge, forging your weapon, and being like, yo, I can put, runes in this and stuff. It was just fun. I think when you think of forges in World of Warcraft, this is definitely one of the forges that stands out, right? I mean, they have rune forging in Hearthstone, rune forges in Naxxramas, there's updated rune forges. This was a staple of forging in World of Warcraft, and that's why it's number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Forge in Orgrimmar, and this one's actually really cool and unique because the forge is not a flame you put the fire into, it's just the lava surrounding the entire room. So if you want to forge some weapon, you just dip it into the lava around the room, and it's really cool because then they got the water right there, right? So you put it in the fire and then put it in the water, and it's like psh, like they do in all the shows and movies or whatever it might be, or real life, I guess, when they're forging stuff, but I just love this one because it's unique, because whenever you think of a forge, you think of, like we just saw, the Rune Forge, like a container with a flame inside, and you put the sword or whatever it is into that flame, and that's it. But this is just like, the orcs have gone crazy, man. They're like, what if the floor was a forge? And they're like, yo, right on, man. They might have been listening to the trolls a little too much. Yo, what if, the forge was in the floor? And they're just like, yeah, This guy smoking a bunch of weed is right. What if the forge was in the floor? And then here we are. And it's awesome. So I really wanted to put this one on the list because of how unique it is. But I also wanted to use this moment to give a shout out to the Stormwind Forge, which was the old Orgrimmar Forge, and just the forge of cities, right? Anywhere you went that needed a forge, this was the forge that was there. Just this little tiny classic WoW forge, and I was going to put this on the list, but something cooler showed up, and I was like, well, I got to put this on, so I wanted to give it an honorable mention anyway. Actually, there's multiple forges here. There's this other old forge as well, so I guess shout out to the old school forges for being basic but necessary. And I figured this would be a good spot to put them in since they're part of like a city and it's Orgrimmar, Stormwind, you get it. So that's why these are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Soulsteel Forges. And I know what you're thinking. Shadowlands, the Maw. Somebody's getting post-traumatic stress just from looking at these, but that's besides the point. We're looking at the art, the aesthetic of this forge, and it's awesome. I think if rune forges were designed today, they would look a lot like this, right? Like they have the rune forges on the side, they have like swords for teeth, like come on, they got the glowing eyes, the flame is gigantic in there. Like these are really cool forges. You know, these are the forges you'd go to do the daily ingot loot quest, so that's right. But you know what, going back to the Maw when you don't have to do anything is a lot more fun. Let me just say that, all right? And you can kind of just appreciate more of the stuff there for its artistic quality. And this is one of the things that I was like, yo, like back when I had to do these dailies and then I stopped doing them because I didn't want to do them anymore, this place sucked. But when you just go there to appreciate what somebody designed and put into the game and you don't have to really do anything with it, it's fantastic. And so for that reason alone, these Soulsteel Forges are number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Forge of Souls, and I knew I had to put the Forge of Souls on the list because this is an actual dungeon that is a forge. So I was like, well, this is going on the list because not only that, but it's also pretty cool looking. I mean, like for the time of Wrath of the Lich King, it almost looks like it could be out of Shadowlands. You know what I mean? Because that's how good this place looks. But I was thinking, well, what do they do with the Forge of Souls? Are they making soul weapons or something? So I don't know, but I was reading more into it. Apparently, the name for this instance might be inspired by the Forge of Souls of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, which is a workshop which crafts the unholy weapons of demons, which I think would make a lot of sense because a lot of World of Warcraft is just inspired from Warhammer. In fact, a lot of Blizzard products are just inspired from Warhammer. And according to Wowpedia, the Forge of Souls is a massive production facility that contains soul grinders. And I was like, okay, well, are these soul grinders grinding up souls and then making these soul weapons or something? But all the lore that I read doesn't really talk about what it does. But in Shadowlands, it would be revealed that the Forge of Souls' true purpose was to extract the world soul of Azeroth through Icecrown and Torghast into the sepulture of the First Ones, where the Zolval, the jailer, intended to use it for the machine of origination to rewrite reality. But that doesn't really make sense to me, because forges are for forging weapons, right? Or for forging, I don't know, something. So what's he forging? Is he forging the world soul? I don't even know if you can forge a world soul. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna say that Arthas made this place to forge some cool undead weapons for his army from souls. That sounds cool. I think the dungeon's cool. This forge is awesome. It's number 5. 4! Number 4 is the Colossal Forge, and this is actually the forge that I forgot about and that I had to replace something on the list with because I thought it was so cool. So I was trying to complete my Traveler's Log. I had to kill 10 more raid bosses. I was like, you know what? Let's just go to Ulduar. So I go to Ulduar, and I was like, dude, the Colossal Forge. How could I forget about this place? Like, it is this massive, some might even say, colossal forge. And Ignis, the Furnace Master, is guarding it. And he is a giant fire construct that was created by Loken. And after his defeat in Ulduar, the Titan Keepers brought him back, and he is now working again in Ulduar's furnace. But the main point here is that this forge is awesome, right? It's this giant fire going on in the background. There's these big snake golden, I don't know if they're snakes or eagles or something. They're an animal head, and it's got the molten lava just pouring out. And, you know, Ignis himself, like, has a built-in forge. He's got, like, a cup of lava around him, so he can just, like, forge on the go. Like, this guy is awesome. And I'm glad I stumbled across this forge when I was doing my mount farming / traveler's log, because I would have been upset if I would have found this later on and been like, are you kidding me? This is a colossal forge I didn't put on the forge list. But then it would have made it into the pointless top 10 things I forgot to put in the pointless top 10s list, which, you know, that'll happen eventually. And that's number 4. 3! And number 3 is the Thunder Forge. And I picked the Thunder Forge here because I love the astral lightning look that it's got going on. So the Thunder Forge is found on the Isle of Thunder, and it was built atop of ancient Titan machinery and powered by the Fist of Ra-Den and the Highkeeper's Ward for thousands of years until some other stuff happened. But pretty much, it's a really cool old Titan forge. I love the look of it. It's got that Pandaria aesthetic, which is also really fun. I think it's just really cool to look at and be in and walk around. However, a lot of people did not like the quest that was related to this back in the day. Pretty much you had to help Rathian, and he was walking around trying to work this thing, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and you gotta like fight off stuff, and a lot of people died all the time, so a lot of people don't like this place, but I think if you go back now and you just forget about that quest ever happening, it's a pretty nice forge. It's got the various anvils, it's got the lightning shooting down from the giant ball up top, it's got the buckets of lava, it's got pretty much everything you'd expect to find at a forge, so there's really not much else for me to say. I couldn't find that much more on it, but that's why it's number 3. 2! And number 2 is the Great Forge of Ironforge, and I feel like you had to know Ironforge was going to be on the list in some way, but the Great Forge, according to Wowpedia, is the heart and namesake of the dwarf capital of Ironforge. It was the first part of the city to be built by the early dwarves who first settled under Ironforge Mountain. The rest of the city grew around it and consequently named Ironforge in its honor. The Great Forge never shuts down. It's a loud, hot, and cheerful place serving not only as the physical center of the city, but also the central part of city life. Most citizens regularly pass through the forge, while visitors come to admire what is happening there. At the center of the Great Forge is the Great Anvil, where most of the best dwarven blacksmithing trainers can be found. Ringed around the Great Forge are several foundries pouring molten slag and a great deal of shops and guild offices, including trainers, etc. Another couple cool facts about it is that 2 bells were created here as a token of friendship, and the dwarves sent one to Lordaeron and the other to Stormwind City. It was also here upon the Great Anvil itself that the legendary blade Ashbringer was forged by King Magni Bronzebeard. So I'd say this is a pretty notable and historic place in World of Warcraft, and that would make it one of the most notable and historic forges in World of Warcraft, and that's why it's number 2. 1. And number 1 is the forge in Utgard Keep. Now, we've seen some forges today, right? We've seen a decent amount of forges, but look at this thing. This is like a backfired forge. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to forge your weapons in this thing, but it is going insane, and they're just kind of chilling, like, yay, you know. Forge is just doing its thing. It's just shooting out massive flames, and we're just working by it. You know how it is. And, you know, when you actually do the dungeon, you have to kill them, and then the flames go away. But prior to that, this thing's just, it's going crazy. Like, this is this is the most insane, intense forge I think I've seen in World of Warcraft, and it's also just a really cool room. It's got the big water troughs, it's got the anvils that have wolf heads on them, it's got the air pumpers, I don't know what they're called, but they're, you know, blowing air into the forge. It's just an awesome forge, and I had to put it at the top, and I was like, you know what? This deserves to be number 1, and that's why it's number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this episode of Pointless Top 10. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, share it with your friends, your family, your guildmates, your dog, I don't know, or don't, I'm not your boss. Also, we got more Pointless Top 10s you can check out. Dungeon entrances, boars, skeletons, statues, got a whole bunch of them. I'll put some up on the screen. Okay? Okay. See ya.